The warning alarm screamed through Station Omega-7 like dying animals. Admiral Zektar's 4 eyes focused on the main display screen, his purple skin turning darker with confusion. The numbers made no sense. "Run the scan again," he ordered, his voice echoing in the command center. The station hung in deep space, watching the edge of hegemony territory. For 300 years, nothing had surprised them. Lieutenant Vorka pressed buttons with her thin fingers. "Sir, I have run the scan 5 times. The readings are the same." Zektar walked closer to the screen. The display showed a single ship moving through space at impossible speed. According to their instruments, it was traveling faster than light itself. But that was not possible without hyperspace engines or jump drives. This ship was moving through normal space as if the laws of physics did not apply to it. "What is the ship's origin?" Zektar asked. "Unknown, sir. It appeared from the direction of the outer rim, from human space." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about humans. They were a young species that had barely left their home planet. The hegemony had been watching them for 50 years, planning to add them to the empire when the time was right. Humans had simple technology. They could not even travel between stars properly. "Humans cannot build ships like this," Zektar said. "Check the sensors again." But before Vorka could respond, more alarms sounded. Communication screens lit up across the bridge. Other monitoring stations were calling in with the same impossible readings. The human ship was being tracked by 17 different stations across 3 sectors. "Sir," Vorka said, her voice shaking, "the ship is slowing down. It's entering our space." On the main screen, they watched the impossible vessel reduce its speed. It should have taken hours to slow down from such velocity. Instead, it stopped in seconds as if momentum meant nothing to it. The ship itself looked strange. It was not the sleek design of hegemony vessels or the crude boxes that most young species built. This ship seemed to bend light around itself. Its hull appeared to shift and change, like looking at water through more water. "Send a message to Fleet Command," Zektar ordered. "Tell them we have a situation." Deep inside the human ship, Dr. Elena Vasquez checked her instruments one final time. The numbers on her screen showed that their experiment had worked perfectly. Around her, the ship's physics laboratory hummed with energy that should not exist. "Reality displacement is holding steady," she told Captain Marcus Chen through the communication system. "We are officially breaking every known law of physics, and the universe seems fine with it." Elena had spent 10 years developing the theory. She had discovered that human consciousness could affect quantum mechanics in ways that other species could not. When humans truly understood something, when they believed in it completely, reality would bend to match their understanding. The breakthrough came when Elena realized that physics was not really about hard rules. It was about agreements. The universe followed certain patterns because all conscious beings expected it to, but humans were different. Human minds were chaotic enough and creative enough to disagree with the universe itself. "How are the crew holding up?" Captain Chen asked. Elena looked around the laboratory. 12 human scientists sat at their stations, their minds focused on maintaining their ship's impossible state. Each person held a piece of the theoretical framework in their thoughts. Together, they convinced reality that their ship could move faster than light through normal space. "Everyone is focused," Elena replied. "But I can see the strain. We cannot maintain this forever." "We do not need forever," Chen said. "Just long enough to change everything." Back on Station Omega-7, Admiral Zektar received a response from Fleet Command. The message was short and clear. Investigate the human ship, but do not engage. The Hegemony Council wanted to understand this new technology before taking action. "Sir," Vorka said, "the human ship is changing course. It is heading directly toward us." Zektar felt a chill run through his body. In 300 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The Hegemony controlled half the galaxy because they had the best technology. Their ships were faster, their weapons stronger, their shields more powerful than any other species. But this human vessel moved through space like the laws of nature were merely suggestions. "Open a communication channel," Zektar ordered. The main screen flickered and changed. Instead of showing the strange human ship, it now displayed the bridge of that vessel. A human male sat in the captain's chair looking directly at them with calm brown eyes. "I am Captain Marcus Chen of the Earth vessel Prometheus Rising," the human said. His voice was steady and confident. "We come in peace, but we also come with a message." Zektar stepped forward. I am Admiral Zektar of the Galactic Hegemony. Your ship is displaying impossible capabilities. How are you moving faster than light without hyperspace technology? Chen smiled. It was not a threatening expression, but something about it made Zektar uncomfortable. We have learned that the universe is more flexible than most species believe. We would like to discuss this with your leaders. That is not possible, Zektar replied. You must submit to inspection and surrender your vessel for study. I'm afraid that is not going to happen, Chen said. But we are willing to demonstrate our peaceful intentions. Please move your station to a safe distance. Before Zektar could ask what he meant, the human ship began to change. Its hull, which had been shifting and bending light, suddenly became solid and clear. For a moment, Zektar could see through the ship's walls into its interior. He saw humans working at strange machines that seemed to glow with their own light. Then the ship began to move. It did not accelerate gradually like normal vessels. Instead, it simply appeared in a different location, as if it had always been there. Then it appeared in another location, and another. Impossible, Vorka whispered. The human ship was teleporting, not using jump drives or hyperspace, but actually moving from one point to another without crossing the space between. Each time it moved, the ship left behind a brief distortion in space itself, like a ripple in water. How? Zektar asked, staring at the screen. Captain Chen's image remained steady on the communication channel. We have learned that reality responds to understanding. When you truly comprehend how the universe works, you can ask it to work differently. The universe, we discovered, is quite reasonable about such requests. Elena Vasquez appeared next to Chen on the screen. She was a small human woman with gray hair and bright eyes. What Captain Chen means is that we have developed a new relationship with physics itself. We do not break the laws of nature. We convince them to be more flexible. Zektar felt his legs grow weak. The implications of what he was seeing were staggering. If humans could control physics through understanding and will, they were not just another species to be conquered. They were something entirely new. What do you want? Zektar asked. To talk, Chen replied. We know that the hegemony has been planning to invade Earth. We know about your expansion plans and your methods. We are here to offer an alternative. The communication screen went dark. The human ship, the Prometheus Rising, hung in space before Station Omega-7 like a challenge to everything the hegemony believed about the universe. Admiral Zektar stared at the impossible vessel and realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. For the first time in his long career, he was afraid. Not of weapons or war, but of the possibility that everything his people believed about reality itself might be wrong. The hegemony's most secure star system had never been breached. Fortress Prime, the capital world's main defense station, controlled weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Energy barriers protected the inner planets from any attack. For 1,000 years, no enemy had come close to threatening the heart of the Empire. General Corthan stood in the central command room, watching displays that showed impossible readings. The human ship had appeared inside their defense perimeter without warning. It had not come through hyperspace. It had not used jump technology. One moment, their sensors showed empty space. The next moment, the strange vessel was simply there. How did it get past our barriers? Corthan demanded. Commander Silva checked her instruments with shaking hands. Sir, according to our records, it did not pass through the barriers. The barriers are still active and undamaged. The ship appears to have materialized inside our defense zone. Corthan's 3 hearts beat faster. He had commanded Fortress Prime for 60 years. He knew every weapon, every shield, every sensor in the system. Nothing could bypass their defenses. Yet here was proof that something had. On the main display, the human vessel hung motionless near the 3rd planet. It looked even stranger than the reports had described. The ship's hull seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Sometimes it appeared solid and metallic. Other times it looked like it was made of light itself. Send a message to the ship, Corthan ordered. Demand that it surrender immediately. Before his crew could send the message, every communication screen in the command center activated at once. The image of the human captain appeared on all of them simultaneously. General Corthan, Captain Chen said, as if he knew exactly who he was speaking to. Thank you for the warm welcome. We apologize for the unannounced arrival, but we needed to speak with your leadership urgently. You have violated our most secure space, Corthan replied. Surrender your vessel or be destroyed. Chen's expression remained calm. We understand your concern. But before you take any aggressive action, we would like to demonstrate something. Please observe. The human ship began to move, but it did not move like any vessel Corthan had ever seen. Instead of accelerating gradually, it seemed to slide through space as if friction and momentum did not apply to it. The ship moved in patterns that defied physics, turning in directions that should have been impossible. Target the vessel, Corthan ordered. All weapons maximum power. The fortress station's main cannons swiveled toward the human ship. Energy weapons that could melt asteroids focused their beams on the strange vessel. Missile batteries launched their most powerful warheads. For a moment, the space around the human ship blazed with destructive energy. When the light faded, the ship remained exactly where it had been. Not damaged, not even marked. It was as if the weapons had never fired at all. Impossible, Commander Silva whispered. Our sensors showed direct hits. The weapons fired correctly. But there is no damage, no energy displacement, no debris. It is as if our attack simply ceased to exist. Captain Chen's image reappeared on their screens. We are sorry that you felt the need to fire upon us. We come in peace. Your weapons cannot harm our vessel because we have convinced the local space-time that such attacks are not permitted here. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared beside Chen on the screen. What the captain means is that we have established a localized reality field around our ship. Within this field, certain physical laws work differently than they do in normal space. Corthan stared at the two humans. You speak of controlling physical laws as if they were regulations that can be changed. In a way they are, Elena replied. Physical laws are really just patterns that the universe follows. Most species accept these patterns without question. Humans have learned to negotiate with them. Inside the Prometheus Rising, Elena stood in the ship's main laboratory, surrounded by instruments that would have seemed like magic to any other species. Around her, 12 human scientists maintained their mental focus on the reality field that protected their vessel. The field was Elena's greatest achievement. She had discovered that human consciousness could influence quantum mechanics on a large scale, but only if the humans involved truly understood what they were trying to accomplish. Each scientist on her team held a piece of the theoretical framework in their mind. Together, they convinced the universe that their ship existed in a state of protected space. How long can we maintain this? Asked Dr. James Wright, one of her colleagues. As long as we stay focused, Elena replied. The universe is surprisingly cooperative when you ask politely and show your work. Captain Chen's voice came through the communication system. Elena, the hegemony forces are preparing for a larger attack. How are our defenses? Stable, Elena replied. But I am more interested in their reaction. They are treating this as a military problem, but it is really a scientific one. On the bridge of the Prometheus Rising, Captain Chen watched the hegemony fleet gathering around their position. Hundreds of warships had arrived in the past hour, all of them pointing weapons at his vessel. He had expected this reaction, but it still saddened him. Sir, said Lieutenant Sarah Park, his communications officer, we are receiving threats from 17 different hegemony commanders. They are demanding our surrender and threatening to use weapons that can destroy entire planets. Chen nodded. Open a channel to all hegemony vessels in the system. When the channel opened, Chen looked directly into the camera. He knew that his words would be heard not just by the military commanders, but by the Hegemony Council itself. People of the hegemony, he began. We are not here as conquerors or invaders. We are here because your empire has been expanding toward our homeworld for decades. We know about your plans to subjugate humanity. We are here to offer an alternative. General Corthan's voice cut through the channel. You are in no position to make offers, human. You are one ship against our entire fleet. That is true, Chen replied. But we are not just one ship. We are proof that the universe works differently than your science believes. We are evidence that intelligence and understanding can overcome any amount of raw force. As if to demonstrate his point, the Prometheus Rising began to change again. The ship's hull became transparent, allowing the hegemony forces to see inside. They could observe the human crew working at their stations, maintaining their impossible technology through will and knowledge. Then the ship began to duplicate itself. First there were 2 Prometheus Rising vessels, then 4, then 8. Each copy was identical to the original, each one protected by the same reality field that made conventional weapons useless. Illusions, Corthan said, but his voice lacked confidence. Not illusions, Elena's voice replied over the communication channel. Quantum superposition on a macro scale. We have convinced local spacetime that our ship can exist in multiple states simultaneously. Each copy is real until we decide which one to collapse back into normal reality. The hegemony fleet found itself surrounded by versions of the human ship. Their sensors could not determine which was the original. Their weapons could not lock onto targets that existed in quantum superposition. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hegemony's most powerful military force was completely helpless. Captain Chen's voice carried across all communication channels in the system. We did not come here to fight. We came here to talk. But if you insist on treating this as a military encounter, you should know that humanity has moved beyond the need for conventional warfare. We fight with understanding. We defend ourselves with knowledge. And we win by convincing reality itself to take our side. The multiple copies of the Prometheus Rising hung in space around the hegemony fleet, like impossible dreams made real. In that moment, every being in the system understood that the galaxy had changed forever. The age of human involvement in galactic affairs had begun. Dr. Veltar had devoted his entire life to understanding the universe. As the hegemony's chief scientist, he had studied the physical laws that governed reality for over 200 years. He had always believed that these laws were absolute and unchanging. Now he stood in the laboratory of a human ship, watching those absolute laws bend like soft metal. This should not be possible, Veltar said, his voice filled with wonder and fear. Dr. Elena Vasquez smiled at him kindly. She was much smaller than Veltar, and her species was incredibly young compared to his people. Yet she spoke about the fundamental forces of the universe as if they were old friends. That is what we used to think too, Elena replied. But possibility is really just a matter of perspective. Around them, the Prometheus Rising's main laboratory hummed with energy that defied explanation. Machines that looked like they were built from crystallized light-processed information in ways that Veltar's instruments could not measure. Human scientists worked at stations where mathematics seemed to take physical form. Veltar had been brought aboard the human ship along with 12 other hegemony scientists. Captain Chen had insisted that they needed to understand humanity's breakthrough before any meaningful communication could take place between their peoples. "Show me how it works," Veltar requested. Elena led him to a device that looked like a sphere made of pure thought. Inside the sphere, equations floated in three-dimensional space, constantly shifting and changing as they interacted with each other. "This is a consciousness interface," Elena explained. "It allows human minds to directly interact with quantum fields. Watch." Elena placed her hands on the sphere. Immediately, the equations inside began to move faster. Veltar could see mathematical relationships forming and dissolving as Elena's thoughts guided them. "I am currently convincing the quantum field around this device that gravity should work differently," Elena said. As she spoke, a small metal ball near the sphere began to float upward instead of falling down. "But gravity is a fundamental force," Veltar protested. "It cannot be changed by thinking about it." "Not by most species," Elena agreed. "But human consciousness has a unique property. Our brains evolved in a chaotic environment where survival required constant adaptation and creative problem-solving. This gave us minds that refused to accept limitations, even limitations imposed by physics itself." Dr. Marcus Hoffman, another human scientist, joined their conversation. "We discovered that consciousness is not separate from physics," he explained. "Consciousness is part of physics. When conscious beings observe quantum events, they influence the outcome. Humans just happen to be very good at this kind of influence." Veltar watched in amazement as the humans demonstrated their abilities. They showed him how human thoughts could alter the behavior of light, making it bend in directions that should have been impossible. They demonstrated how focused human attention could change the rate at which time flowed in small areas of space. "But how did you learn to do this?" Veltar asked. Elena sat down beside him. "It began with quantum mechanics research about 50 years ago. Our scientists noticed that human observers seemed to influence experimental results more than observers from other species. At first we thought it was measurement error." "What changed your mind?" Veltar inquired. "A scientist named Dr. Chen Li," Elena replied. "He was Marcus's grandfather, actually. He proved that human consciousness could affect quantum events through will and understanding alone. But his work was dismissed because it seemed too incredible to believe." Marcus nodded. "My grandfather spent 30 years developing the theoretical framework. He showed that reality is not fixed and absolute. Instead, reality is a consensus between all conscious minds in the universe. Most species accept this consensus without question. Humans learn to negotiate with it. Veltar felt his understanding of the universe shifting. Everything he had believed about the nature of reality was being challenged by these young humans and their impossible science. If this is true, Veltar said slowly, then humans are not just another intelligent species. You are something fundamentally different. Yes, Elena replied. We are consciousness that has learned to reshape reality through understanding. We are intelligence that can convince the universe to work differently. Captain Chen's voice came through the ship's communication system. Dr. Vasquez, please bring our guests to the bridge. We have a situation developing. Elena led Veltar and the other hegemony scientists to the command center of the Prometheus Rising. Through the main viewing screen, they could see the massive hegemony fleet that surrounded their ship. Hundreds of warships pointed their weapons at the human vessel, but none of them dared to fire. What is the situation, Captain? Elena asked. The Hegemony Council has ordered the complete destruction of our ship, Chen replied. They have decided that our technology is too dangerous to be allowed to exist. On the screen, Veltar could see his own people preparing weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Planet-killer missiles were being loaded into launch tubes. Energy cannons capable of cracking moons were charging to full power. They mean to use the ultimate weapons, Veltar said, his voice filled with horror. Those weapons will destroy everything within a light year of this position. We know, Chen replied calmly. We have been monitoring their communications. Then you must flee, Veltar urged. No ship can survive those weapons. Elena smiled. Dr. Veltar, you still think in terms of conventional physics. Watch what happens when humans decide that certain weapons simply should not work. Around them, the Prometheus Rising's crew focused their attention on their instruments. Veltar could feel something changing in the space around the ship. The air itself seemed to become more solid, more real. We are expanding our reality field, Elena explained. Instead of protecting just our ship, we are now protecting this entire region of space. Within this field, weapons of mass destruction cannot function because we have convinced the local universe that such weapons violate the basic principles of existence. On the viewing screen, Veltar watched the hegemony fleet fire their ultimate weapons. Planet-killer missiles launched from their tubes and flew toward the human ship. Energy beams that could melt asteroids focused on their target. But as the weapons entered the space around the Prometheus Rising, they simply stopped working. The missiles became harmless chunks of metal. The energy beams dispersed into harmless light. It was as if the very concept of destruction had been banned from local reality. Impossible, whispered one of the other hegemony scientists. Not impossible, Elena corrected. Just improbable. And humans are very good at making improbable things happen. Captain Chen opened a communication channel to the hegemony fleet. Fleet commanders, your weapons have been neutralized. We harbor no ill will toward your crews, but we cannot allow you to threaten our vessel or the innocent people on nearby worlds. General Corthan's voice came through the channel, filled with rage and frustration. What have you done to our weapons? We have asked the universe to be more peaceful in this area, Chen replied. The universe agreed with our request. Veltar stared at the humans around him. They spoke of negotiating with reality itself as if it were the most natural thing in the world. They had turned the fundamental forces of physics into tools that responded to their will and understanding. Your people, Veltar said to Elena, you are not just intelligent. You are evolution taking a new direction. Perhaps, Elena replied. But we are also still human. We still make mistakes. We still have emotions and fears and hopes. We have just learned that the universe is more flexible than most species realize. Through the viewing screen, Veltar could see the hegemony fleet retreating to a safe distance. Their most powerful weapons had been rendered useless by human thought and will. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hegemony military had encountered something they could not defeat or destroy. What happens now? Veltar asked. Captain Chen looked at him with calm, determined eyes. Now we have a conversation about the future of the galaxy. Your empire has ruled through fear and force for too long. We are here to offer something different. What are you offering? Veltar inquired. Freedom, Elena replied. Not just for humanity, but for every species that has been oppressed by the hegemony. We are offering to teach other races how to unlock their own reality-shaping potential. Veltar felt a chill run through his body. If humans could teach their abilities to other species, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. The hegemony's empire, built on superior technology and military might, would crumble. But as he looked at the human scientists around him, Veltar realized that might not be a bad thing. These humans possessed power beyond imagination, yet they spoke of peace and freedom. They could have destroyed the hegemony fleet easily, but instead they had simply neutralized their weapons. For the first time in his long life, Veltar began to hope that the galaxy might become a better place. High Chancellor Mordak had ruled the galactic hegemony for 3 centuries. In all that time, no threat had ever reached the heart of the empire. No enemy had ever made the Hegemony Council tremble with fear. But as he stared at the reports flowing in from across their territory, Mordak felt something he had never experienced before: desperation. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked his military advisor. General Zorthak consulted his datapad with shaking hands. "Less than half our original fleet, Your Excellence. The human vessel has neutralized our most powerful weapons. Our crews are afraid to engage." "Afraid?" Mordek's voice rose in anger. "The hegemony military does not know fear." "They do now," Zorthak replied quietly. "The humans have shown that our entire understanding of warfare is obsolete. How do you fight an enemy that can convince reality to take their side?" Mordek turned to look out the great window of his throne room. Beyond the transparent wall, he could see the capital world of the hegemony stretching to the horizon. Billions of beings lived on this planet, all of them dependent on the Empire's continued strength. "There must be a way," Mordak said. "No species is truly invincible." Dr. Veltar entered the throne room, recently returned from the human ship. His report had shaken everyone who heard it. The chief scientist approached the throne with careful steps. "Your Excellence," Veltar said, "I have studied the human technology extensively. Their abilities are real. They have learned to influence the fundamental forces of the universe through consciousness and understanding." "Can we duplicate their technology?" Mordak demanded. Veltar hesitated before answering. "Not in the way you might hope. Human brains are structured differently than ours. Their minds evolved to reject limitations and question authority, even the authority of physical laws. Most other species, including ours, evolved to accept hierarchies and follow established patterns." Mordak felt his heart sink. "Then we cannot defend ourselves against them?" "Not through conventional means," Veltar replied. "But I believe there may be another way." Before Veltar could explain, emergency alarms began sounding throughout the Capitol building. General Zorthak received an urgent message on his communication device. "Your Excellence," Zorthak said, his voice filled with panic. "The human ship has just appeared in 17 different star systems simultaneously. They are contacting the leaders of our subject worlds directly." Mordak stared at the tactical display that appeared in the center of the throne room. Red dots marked the locations where copies of the human vessel had materialized. Each dot represented a world that had been conquered and subjugated by the hegemony centuries ago. "How is this possible?" Mordak asked. "They have learned to exist in multiple places at once," Veltar explained. "Quantum superposition on a galactic scale. Each copy of their ship is real until they choose to collapse back into a single location." In the throne room's communication center, messages began arriving from across the Empire. The reports painted a picture that terrified the hegemony leadership. On Corlex Prime, the human ship had appeared above the slave mines where millions of beings toiled to extract rare metals for the Empire. Captain Chen's voice had broadcast to every worker, telling them that their liberation was at hand. On Veltara, the humans had materialized near the forced labor camps where entire species were held in bondage. The human message was simple: the age of oppression was ending. On world after world, the same scene played out. The human ship would appear, deliver a message of hope to the oppressed peoples, and then demonstrate their reality-shaping abilities by neutralizing hegemony weapons and freeing prisoners. "They are inciting rebellion across the entire empire," General Zorthak reported. "Our governors are reporting uprisings on 47 worlds. The subject species are refusing to obey our commands." Mordak watched his empire crumble on the tactical display. Each red dot represented not just a human ship, but a world in revolt. The fear that had kept the hegemony subjects in line for centuries was evaporating as they witnessed beings who could bend reality to their will. "Bring me the quantum weapon," Mordak ordered desperately. General Zorthak's face went pale. Your Excellence, the quantum weapon is still experimental. It has never been tested. It could destroy our own worlds along with the target. Better to rule over ashes than to lose the Empire entirely, Mordak replied. The quantum weapon was the hegemony's most closely guarded secret. It was designed to collapse the quantum fields that held matter together, essentially erasing targets from existence. The weapon was so dangerous that it had been locked away for 50 years, deemed too risky to use. But as Mordak watched his empire dissolving into chaos, he decided that desperate times required desperate measures. Meanwhile, aboard the original Prometheus Rising, Captain Chen monitored the situation across the galaxy. Through quantum entanglement, he remained in contact with all the copies of his ship that were spreading humanity's message of liberation. Status report, Chen requested. Lieutenant Park consulted her instruments. 17 worlds have declared independence from the hegemony. Rebellion is spreading to 30 more systems. The Empire's military is in complete disarray. Dr. Elena Vasquez joined Chen on the bridge. Marcus, I am detecting massive energy buildup in the hegemony capital system. They are preparing to use some kind of quantum weapon. Chen nodded grimly. We expected this. They would rather destroy everything than lose control. Can our reality field protect against a quantum weapon? Elena asked. We are about to find out, Chen replied. In the hegemony capital system, the quantum weapon powered up slowly. The device was the size of a small moon, built in secret over decades of research. It required enormous amounts of energy to collapse quantum fields across interstellar distances. High Chancellor Mordak stood in the weapons control center, watching technicians prepare the final firing sequence. Target the human ship in our space first, he ordered. Then target their homeworld. Your Excellence, one technician said nervously. If we fire this weapon, the quantum cascade could spread beyond our intended targets. It might affect our own worlds. The Empire will survive, Mordak declared. It always has. But as the quantum weapon charged to full power, something unexpected happened. The massive device began to malfunction. Its quantum field generators, which should have been stable, started fluctuating wildly. What is happening? Mordak demanded. The lead technician stared at his instruments in confusion. The weapon's quantum fields are destabilizing. It is as if something is convincing them not to work. Through the control center's viewing windows, they could see the human ship, Prometheus Rising, approaching their position. It had not attacked or threatened them. It simply flew closer, its reality field extending around the quantum weapon. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice came through their communication system. High Chancellor Mordak, we cannot allow you to use that weapon. It would harm innocent people across the galaxy. How are you interfering with our systems? Mordak asked. We have convinced the quantum fields in this area that weapons of mass destruction are not permitted, Elena replied. The universe has agreed with our assessment. Mordak watched in horror as his ultimate weapon became nothing more than an enormous piece of useless machinery. The quantum generators shut down completely, their fields collapsed by human will and understanding. This is impossible, Mordak whispered. Captain Chen's image appeared on the control center's main screen. High Chancellor, your empire has fallen, not through conquest or war, but through the simple realization that freedom is stronger than oppression. Your subject peoples have seen that the universe itself can be convinced to support justice over tyranny. Around the galaxy, the copies of the human ship continued their work. On world after world, the oppressed peoples of the hegemony threw off their chains. The empire that had ruled through fear for 1,000 years crumbled in a matter of hours. But the humans did not conquer. Instead, they offered something far more powerful: hope for a better future, and the knowledge that even the laws of physics could be convinced to support freedom over tyranny. High Chancellor Mordak realized that his reign was over. The galactic hegemony, built on the principle that might makes right, had encountered something mightier than force, intelligence that could reshape reality itself. The age of empire was ending. The age of liberation had begun. 6 months after the fall of the hegemony, the galaxy looked completely different. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the Earth Federation's new diplomatic station, watching ships from dozens of species arrive for the first Galactic Freedom Council meeting. The station itself was a marvel of human reality-shaping technology. It existed in normal space but bent the laws of physics to accommodate the needs of hundreds of different species. Atmospheric zones shifted to provide the right air for each delegation. Gravity adjusted itself based on the preferences of different beings. Time flowed at slightly different rates in various sections to match the biological rhythms of the visitors. "It is beautiful," said Dr. Veltar, who had become humanity's closest alien ally in the new galactic order. "A year ago, I would have said such a station was impossible. Now I helped design them." Chen smiled. "You have learned quickly. Your people have a natural aptitude for reality engineering once you stopped believing it was impossible." Veltar nodded. His own species, the Carathians, had been among the first to learn human techniques for influencing quantum fields through consciousness. They discovered that their minds, while different from human brains, could still affect reality when properly trained. "How many species have successfully mastered the basic techniques?" Chen asked. 47 so far," Veltar replied. "Each species approaches it differently, but the fundamental principle remains the same. Consciousness shapes reality when it understands reality deeply enough." Dr. Elena Vasquez joined them on the observation deck. She had spent the past 6 months traveling the galaxy, teaching reality engineering to any species that wanted to learn. Her hair had gone completely gray from the mental strain, but her eyes still sparkled with excitement. The Zentarians just achieved their first successful faster-than-light journey without mechanical engines, Elena reported. They convinced their ship that distance was negotiable. The voyage from their homeworld to here took 3 days instead of 3 months. Chen felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. When humanity had first encountered the hegemony, their goal had been simple: protect Earth from conquest. But the mission had evolved into something much greater. They were now helping to create a galaxy where every species could reach its full potential. "Any word from the former hegemony worlds?" Chen asked. "Most have formed their own governments," Elena replied. "The Melkorian Republic is thriving. The Vorthan Unity has abolished their caste system. Even the hegemony core worlds are experimenting with democracy." Through the station's quantum communication system, Chen could monitor the ongoing transformation across the galaxy. The Prometheus Rising had divided into hundreds of smaller vessels, each one carrying human diplomats and teachers to worlds that had been freed from the Empire's control. But the humans were not trying to create a new empire. Instead, they were helping each species discover its own path to freedom and self-determination. "Captain," came a voice from behind them. Chen turned to see Admiral Sarah Park, who had been promoted to lead humanity's diplomatic fleet. "The council meeting is about to begin." Chen nodded and followed her to the main assembly hall. The chamber was enormous, with sections designed for beings ranging from tiny insect-like creatures to massive gas giant dwellers. At the center of the room, a quantum field generator created a 3-dimensional display that could be seen and understood by all the different species present. As Chen took his place at the human delegation table, he looked around at the assembled representatives. There were beings he had never seen before, alongside others he had helped liberate from hegemony control. All of them were here to discuss the future of galactic civilization. The meeting began with a presentation by Dr. Elena Vasquez about the current state of reality engineering education across the galaxy. Her report was encouraging. More species were learning to influence quantum fields every month. Technologies that had seemed impossible a year ago were becoming commonplace. "The Thraxian Commonwealth has successfully created artificial gravity without mechanical generators," Elena reported. "The Bolivian collective has learned to purify their polluted atmosphere by convincing toxins to become harmless. The possibilities are endless when consciousness and physics work together." But not every report was positive. Representative Korthon, the former hegemony general who now spoke for the reformed military worlds, raised a concern that had been growing for months. "While we celebrate these achievements," Korthon said, "we must also address a serious problem. Some groups are using reality engineering for harmful purposes. We have reports of criminals who can make themselves invisible to sensors, pirates who can convince ship hulls to become brittle and weak, terrorists who can destabilize entire star systems." The assembly hall fell silent. This was the dark side of humanity's gift to the galaxy. When the fundamental laws of physics became negotiable, they could be negotiated by anyone with sufficient understanding and willpower. Captain Chen stood to address the assembly. "We have always known that this technology could be misused, but we believe that the benefits far outweigh the risks. Freedom always carries the possibility of abuse, but the alternative is oppression. Dr. Veltar rose from his seat. I propose that we establish the Galactic Reality Council. This organization would monitor the use of reality engineering and intervene when it threatens innocent beings. The proposal sparked intense debate. Some species worried that such a council could become a new form of tyranny. Others argued that unlimited reality manipulation was too dangerous to leave unregulated. Elena Vasquez offered a compromise. What if the council's only power was educational? Instead of policing reality engineering, we could focus on teaching ethical applications. When people understand the full implications of their actions, they usually make better choices. The debate continued for hours, but eventually the assembly reached a consensus. The Galactic Reality Council would be established, but its role would be limited to education and voluntary cooperation. No species would be forced to accept its guidance. As the meeting concluded, Chen felt a mixture of hope and concern. Humanity had given the galaxy an incredible gift, but like all powerful tools, it could be used for good or ill. The future would depend on whether the galaxy species chose to use their new abilities wisely. Later that evening, Chen stood again on the observation deck watching ships depart for their home worlds. Each vessel carried new knowledge and new possibilities. Some would use what they had learned to heal their worlds and help their people. Others might choose different paths. Do you think we did the right thing? Elena asked, joining him at the viewing window. Chen considered the question carefully. I think we did the only thing we could do. Humanity discovered something extraordinary, and we shared it with the galaxy. What happens next is up to everyone else. Dr. Veltar approached them carrying a datapad with the latest reports from across known space. The transformation continues, he said. The Andorian system has eliminated poverty by convincing matter to reorganize itself into useful forms. The Centauri Alliance has created new worlds by persuading asteroids to become habitable planets. And the problems? Elena asked. Growing as well, Veltar admitted. But for every species that misuses reality engineering, 10 others use it to build something better. The galaxy is becoming more free, more creative, and more alive than it has been in millennia. Chen nodded, watching the stars through the observation window. Somewhere out there, the former High Chancellor Mordak was learning to live in a galaxy where his empire's rules no longer applied. Somewhere else, former slaves were using human-taught techniques to rebuild their devastated worlds. The galaxy was changing in ways that no one could predict. But for the first time in 1,000 years, that change was being driven by hope rather than fear, by creativity rather than force, by the radical idea that even the laws of physics should serve freedom, rather than oppression. Humanity had set out to protect their home world from conquest. Instead, they had convinced the universe itself to support liberty over tyranny. The empire had trembled and fallen, not before superior weapons, but before a simple, revolutionary idea. That reality itself could be convinced to be more just, more free, and more beautiful. The age of human ascendancy had begun, but more importantly, the age of galactic cooperation had begun as well. And in a universe where consciousness could shape reality, there was no limit to what free beings could accomplish when they worked together. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, as if the universe approved of the direction its newest reality shapers were taking it.